going to the root and getting to the bottom of Tamil Eelam conflict and rapes part 2. If you have not gone through part 1, then please complete part 1 and return. Please give all your attention. Level 1. Rocking in the privacy of the toilet or bathroom via remote puppetry, forcing the images of Liz Truss, Rachel Reeves, or Madonna before the mind's eye, again via remote puppetry by the Brahmins, put at 10% to 15% of high entropy, apathy, hate, and spite, induced by 10 to 15% strength of remote puppetry by the Brahmins. Level 2. My physical or carnal relationship with the police commissioner's daughter and married woman with a child, Shanti Pari, via remote puppetry by the Brahmins, put at 30% to 35% of high entropy, apathy, hate, and spite, induced by 30 to 35% strength of remote puppetry by the Brahmins. Level 3. Police Commissioner's daughter, married woman with a child, Shanti Pari's escapades and carnal misadventures in hotels with Bible Saral Suresh and Khatib Abrar Ahmed via remote puppetry by the Brahmins, either all of them or at least Shanti and Abrar as innocent victims of remote puppetry by the Brahmins via put at 40% to 50% of high entropy, apathy, hate, and spite induced by 40% and 50% strength of remote puppetry by the Brahmins. Level 4. All the episodes of Prajwal Revanna Gowda King via remote puppetry by the Brahmins put at 50% to 70% of high entropy, apathy, hate, and spite induced by 50% to 70% strength of remote puppetry by the Brahmins. Level 6. The aggravated sexual assault or rape and murder of Anuya Esther Singavarapu of Machilipatnam and burning of her body beyond recognition put at 70% to 75% high entropy, apathy, hate, and spite induced by 70% to 75% strength of remote puppetry by the Brahmins. Machilipatnam is also my matrilineal and patrilineal place of origin or root of my ancestry, much like Anuya Esther Singavarappu. The judges Gavya Mishra and K.V. Vishwanathan, who was nominated by none other than Justice Chandrachud himself, acquitted the rape accused Sanap in the Esther Singavarapu case, maybe because the judges thought that Sanap was not the actual perpetrator. That is, Sanap was the real perpetrator but not the actual perpetrator. Please note the difference between real and actual. The real perpetrator is whom you see doing the crime at the crime spot or location, while the actual perpetrator is all the while invincibly invisible, while the actual perpetrator all the while is invincibly invisible, comfortably hiding behind remote puppetry, who actually commits the horrendous and heinous crimes using the real perpetrator, for instance, Sanap, as an unsuspecting innocent puppet in the hands of the Brahmins, who are the actual perpetrators who commit the horrendous and heinous crimes. Got it? Clear? Much like the actual perpetrators of the 100,000 rapes, gang rapes, filming of forced porn, child porn of Tamil Eelam women, girls, and underage girls. The real got weaponized and demonized and got caught, while the actual perpetrators, the Brahmins, got away unscathed, without dirtying their hands, without a scratch, torn lip, broken nose, tooth, or bone. Being invincibly invisible, comfortably hiding behind remote puppetry. All this also applies to the aggravated violent conflict, highly aggravated violent conflict, carnages, pogroms, genocides, and finally ethnic cleansing based on increasing steps of intensity of aggression and violence compounding the conflict. Please note, therefore, placed at level 1 in steps of 10% to 15% of high entropy, apathy, hate, and spite induced by 10 to 15% strength of remote puppetry to produce aggravated violent conflict. Level 2, 30% to 35% of high entropy, apathy, hate, and spite induced by 30 to 35% of remote puppetry to produce highly aggravated violent conflict. Level 3, 40 to 50% of high entropy, apathy, hate, and spite induced by 40 to 50% of remote puppetry to produce a carnage. Level 4, 50 to 60% of high entropy, apathy, hate, and spite induced by 50 to 60% of remote puppetry to produce a pogrom. Level 5, 60 to 70% of high entropy, apathy, hate, and spite induced by 60 to 70% of remote puppetry to produce a genocide. Level 6, 70 to 80% of high entropy, apathy, hate, and spite induced by 70 to 80% remote puppetry to produce ethnic cleansing. Now, returning to explaining the levels of high entropy and remote puppetry involved in rapes and gang rapes, we continue thus having left off at level 5. Level 6, the gang rape and burning to death alive of Disha Reddy, put at 75% to 80% high entropy, apathy, hate, and spite, induced by 75% to 80% strength of remote puppetry by the Brahmins. 7. The rape or gang rape and murder of 100,000 Tamil Eelam women, girls, and underage girls, put at 80% to 90% high entropy, apathy, hate, and spite, induced by 80% to 90% remote puppetry by the Brahmins. Now, the highly philosophical and spiritual question is what happens at 90% to 100% of high entropy, apathy, hate, and spite, seething and raging in the Brahmins? Something incredible and inexplicable happens at biblical proportion. An inexplicable, sudden, momentous, and monumental reversal of biblical proportions or on biblical scale of or on the biblical scale of an Armageddon. Armageddon takes place because even the gods and the heavens cannot tolerate it anymore. The Brahmins call upon themselves an holocaust that might exterminate the Brahmins. Not a single Brahmin will be left on this planet, or maybe only those Brahmins with low entropy will survive the Holocaust or extermination or the biblical Armageddon. The Brahmins will be asking for an holocaust. The Brahmins will be asking for an holocaust that will wipe out the entire Brahmin community if the Brahmin high entropy breaches the critical limit of 90% and above.